Why are Kizer's top liner locks failing? Is it QC, geometry, or a little more complex? Welcome back to the channel, folks. I really appreciate you tuning in. Today we're going to discuss a recent conversation in the community about Kizer's top liner locks. Now, recently, Metal Complex did a few tests on Kizer's top liner locks in a couple of his videos. While I agree with pretty much everything he has to say on the subject, I do think that the reasons behind this are a bit more complex. The community's not really getting to the root cause here, and they're just going for, the easy route. Oh, this is quality control. They're banging out so many knives, so on and so forth. Now, if you look throughout the internet, you get on Reddit, you look at chats on whatnot, you'll see people comparing the Vosteed liner locks and the Kizer liner locks. Now, the designs are slightly different. This is more of a compression lock. This is more of a top liner lock. But people like to compare the action of these two, and a lot of people will say, go with Kizer. It's smoother. It just feels better. The action's more tuned in. So my argument today is that the community is part of why locks fail in general when it comes to any type of liner lock or frame lock. Even myself included, as a reviewer, you talk about action, drop shut action, how smooth it is. Reviewers complain about lock stick and stuff like that, and most of these Vosteeds do have some lock stick. I'd argue that locks are kind of like blade steel. You have to kind of pick a happy medium between smoothness, action, and lockup and how strong it's going to be. Kizer has been praised and praised for their action lately, and then people wonder why these fail a little bit more often than some other brands. It's because you want such a smooth action. Less liner tension is going to give you smooth action. All right, it's just how it works. Now, you can still have a pretty strong detent while having the liner not have a ton of lock bar tension. There's other ways to do that. You can make the detent ball a different size, the hole a different size, so on and so forth. But people just want that super smooth flick out action and that button that's just really easy to press. So I think it's kind of lazy to just say, this is QC. It's not. These are tuned for this because the community wants this. Kizer gets praise for this. But in turn, it makes them not as strong. Now, if you look at a frame lock, what's the biggest complaint when it comes to a Sebenza? It's that the action sucks. It's, not very flickable, so on and so forth. But the lock bar on these is really freaking strong. Now, if you don't have lock bar tension on these, let me push the lock bar away. It has fine drop shut action. It 100% just has to do with this lock bar tension here. And that's why when you go to flick it out, it's not as smooth as some other knives are. And, it just doesn't have that drop shut feel to it. Here's two Remet Rhinos. This is their budget D2 one. The action isn't nearly as good on it. I mean, it's stiff, right? And a lot of that has to do with the lock bar here. The lock bar design on this budget one here is different. Here's the high-end one that everyone's praising. You can see inside there, the lock bar design is different and it's designed to be softer. And that's what's helping this get better action. Because when you push this away, not only does it make it easier to unlock, right? Then there's less tension that's pushing on the tang here. And so it's smoother this way, right? So when you flick it out, it's smoother. When it drops, it's smoother. And that is what people love. They love that smooth action. Now, some of this might have to do with geometry as well, but I'd go back to the geometry a lot of times has to do with how stiff they're making the lock bar. So, you'll have a skinnier lock bar on something like this, but that's also by design, so it's smoother. Now, any of these will be smooth when you just hold the lock down, right? So then, the lock is pushed as far away from the tang as possible, and then, it's going to move like that. But what people like is they like it to flick out nice and smoothly and easily, and they like to be able to press the button like that and then go like this and have it close very smoothly. Now, here's Spyderco. Not the smoothest action in the world. Obviously, this one is running on phosphor bronze washers and not ball bearings, but really, I would say the biggest reason it doesn't drop shut as much as some others do is just because of this lock bar tension here. And these tend to have a lot of lock stick as well. So if I hold it right here, yeah, I can get it to close, but it takes more, right? It's just a little bit stiffer. It feels a little bit stiffer when you flick these out, even though you can break them in a bit. This one right here is a bit newer and feels even stiffer. A lot of people will even, unscrew their pivots here and don't mind a little bit of blade play just so they get that drop shut action on these. Now, with the Vosteeds, it's not that the action's bad, but almost all of these that I've ever gotten have lock stick right out of the gate. Now, people hate that. They say lock stick's so bad. You know, you could say maybe it has a little bit to do with geometry, but the biggest thing is that it just has to do with how stiff the lock bar is. Eventually it'll break itself in, but these are locking up more firmly than, you know, something with a less stiff lock bar. And so maybe it's time that, you know, when you get a knife and you get a little bit of lock stick, you know, maybe feel like that's a good thing for your knife. The lock stick itself isn't what's, you know, making it stronger, but you know that your lock bar tension is a lot better and it's got a firm lock up there. So now here is the Beg Letter 2.9. This one's brand new. I just got it. I don't know if this is going to unlock or not with some, you know, spine taps here, but let's see. Yeah, there it goes. I had to pound pretty hard. You know, it actually feels pretty secure, but I had to pound pretty hard. Now, in day-to-day use, are you going to be doing that? It's unlikely. Maybe if, you know, it's really the vibrations of that, you know, smacking that's slowly shimming over the lock and unlocking it. More so, you're going to get more steady tension on a knife, right? And so if I just push like this, I'm pushing pretty freaking hard and it is not unlocking. So that's more of a real world scenario, but it's not to say that it could never happen because weird things happen with knives. But, you know, just keep that in mind. I go into buying knives knowing that stuff with a lock bar is not going to be the most secure. Even when it's a compression lock, sometimes it's just not going to be as secure if it's got pretty smooth action, if it's got an early lockup, so on and so forth. Now with the Vostede here, let's see if I can get that to unlock. No, I mean, I'm pounding it pretty damn hard. It's not unlocking. I would argue this does not have to do with QC. It has to do with Vostede is, you know, prioritizing how strong their lockup is a little bit more than their smoothness. And Kizer is prioritizing their smoothness a little bit more than their lockup. They're both in day-to-day use for EDC knives are going to be fine 99.999% of the time. But I wanted to make this video because I saw like so many people after Metal Complex made those videos just saying it's QC, it's QC, it's QC. My argument is that this is by design. It's not QC. The community has been praising Kizer for how smooth these knives are. And if you want a knife that smooth, one of the repercussions to that is that the lockup just isn't going to be as strong as something that has a little more tension, a little more friction, you know, when you're going like this, and a little less drop shut action. So in a way, I'm kind of, you know, sticking up for Kizer here because it's just QC. They just pump stuff out. QC, QC, QC. No, you know, you guys asked for this all over Reddit. Look at Reddit discussions, Vostede versus Kizer. Look at other chats on Facebook or in whatnot. People are praising them for that smooth action, and this is what you get. So I hope that makes sense. Feel free to let me know what you think down in the comments. It doesn't mean there's never QC issues, but, you know, overall, the smoother, drop shuttier knife is going to have a less, you know, lockup strength when it comes to a, you know, lock bar type of knife, a frame lock, liner lock, top liner lock, compression lock, so on and so forth, compared to that knife that is a little bit stiffer, has more lock bar tension, a little bit less drop shutty action, and maybe a little bit less fidgety. So pick your poison. But like I said, not disagreeing at all with Metal Complex, more so disagreeing with the way the community responds to these tests and what they think it is. So I think that's it, guys. That about wraps it up. Until next time, thanks for watching.